cr101radio.com, podcasts, and more. And welcome back to another episode of Preschool Pioneers. I am your host, Jeremy Walker. You can follow us on our parent network, CR101 Radio, on social media such as Facebook, Twitter, Gab, and YouTube. And you can subscribe to this podcast on your preferred platform so you never miss an episode. Visit cr101radio.com for these links. Welcome back again, dear listener, to Preschool Pioneers. This episode we have for you is entitled, X is for Xenophile and Xenophobe. The importance of teaching children how to recognize strangers and how to help them develop a healthy fear of strangers that will help keep them safe. Well, welcome back, guys, on Preschool Pioneers, because this episode is about something that we have lost, but not by accident. When I was growing up, we used to have fairy tales all around, little stories that would teach concepts. At the end of the fairy tales, there was what was called the moral of the story. And almost every story had a moral to it. Storytelling had a purpose. It wasn't only just for entertainment. But of course, there is nothing wrong with things just for entertainment either. But little stories to help children learn lessons, like the little boy who cried wolf. And at the end of the story, of course, something terrible. He gets eaten by the wolf, and the moral of the story is, do not lie, or people will not listen to you, and it will be to your demise or destruction. And we even had stories like Little Red Riding Hood, where, of course, Little Red Riding Hood's story, if you know the original story, it was actually taught to teach young women about the dangers of seduction. That's right, the dangers of being seduced by the big, bad wolf that would come in, say nice things, but they were there to devour you. This was a concept to teach young girls about chastity and the dangers that there were people out there that were trying to take it from them, should they be so foolish as to let them. Now, the reason why we've lost the quote-unquote moral of the story is because we've lost our Christian influence. Right now, here in America, I use the terms xenophile and xenophobe on purpose because we have an influx of massive illegal immigration that is done on purpose and perpetrated by the federal government of the United States on purpose. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on this subject matter because I don't think it needs too much attention, and I'll tell you why. Why is it that people are being brought into this country by corrupt politicians who want to change the voting structure in America? Well, it's very simple. The extreme people that are in our country today have gotten so far away from what America is, especially what it started out to be, that they have to bring in people from other countries that lack practically all Christian influence in order to get them to agree with them. Because even the corrupt, watered-down Christianity that we have in America today is still too powerful for these people to succeed in our nation. And that's why they have to bring in people, because the current American people have finally said no. They revealed who they are, kind of like the end of a Scooby-Doo episode. They pulled back the mask and they revealed who it is under the mask. And America clearly has said no. And very soon, we're going to be voting in just so many days here in America. And I think it is going to be too big to rig, as has been the common quotes going around today. But the term xenophile, by definition, is somebody who loves strangers and foreigners. And the concept for xenophobe, by definition, is someone who is afraid of strangers and or foreigners. Well, you have to have a healthy fear of strangers. I remember there used to be public service announcements back in the early 60s and 70s for young boys. That's right. You had Little Red Riding Hood talking to young girls about seduction. And, of course, the United States of America paid to have public service announcements videotaped geared towards young boys. And what were these public service announcements teaching them the fear of? Strangers, strange men. And these strange men were going to try to seduce them. And that's right, the entire public service announcement was against those who were sexual perverts, who were men who liked to have sex with men. And this is what the American public put out as a public service announcement to tell young boys that this is what's going to happen. You will have people who are trying to seduce you into sexual perversions and to be on the watch out for it. Now, today, this is now sexual education. Oh, we're going to get into some meat and bone today on this episode because we are going to talk about why it is we've lost our fear of strangers. We should never get into the car with people. Don't trust people you don't know. Don't take things from people you don't know. There must be a healthy fear that there are people on the outside who do not have your best interest and who want to hurt you in so many ways. Now, it doesn't mean they're just going to kidnap you and throw you in the back of a van. That has nothing to do with it. The story of Little Red Riding Hood in its original meaning was seduction, not rape. Giant difference. And, of course, the public service announcement to young boys to fear being seduced by men who like to have sex with other men, pedophiles. This was to be a seduction, not something where they were grabbing the boys and taking them into the basement and forcibly raping the young boys. But you were going to be given a choice. The men would be giving the young ladies a choice, and they would seduce them into giving in. And the same to the young boys. Now, if we fast forward to 2024, we find that we now do not have a fear of strangers anymore. And in fact, we only have a love for them. We're taught to love them. Love is love. There's no danger to your children. Though they sing songs, we're coming for your children. This podcast is about parents that are Christians and teachers that are Christians and what we're supposed to do, why we're important, and why Christians should become teachers. Christians absolutely should become teachers because children right now are the target of the strangers and the foreigners. And we're not talking about people from different countries. We're talking about people who are teaching perversions, and not just sexual perversions, but moral perversions as well. It can be about economics, which goes into socialism and communism and the rest. But these are the foreigners that the Bible talks about. Christianity does not have a problem with immigration. It doesn't have a problem with people coming into a nation and migrating into new areas. In America today, shouldn't even be a discussion about illegal immigration because it's breaking the law. The question is about why are there so many people who are not wanting to uphold the laws of America? These are people that should not be in office because they are not enforcing the laws that their job is to enforce. It's a police officer who doesn't enforce the law. They are helping the criminals, and those that are foolish enough to obey the law, well, those people are the fools. If you want to get ahead in America today with certain types of people, it'd be better off to be a criminal. But to be a law-abiding citizen is to be the enemy of these people who are revolutionaries. And they not only want our children, but Americans have been giving them to them for years. They've been giving their young girls to the wolves, and they've been giving their young boys to the sexual deviants. And it's been happening and happening for decades upon decades upon decades. Now, the foreigner and the stranger are those people who might be Christian, who would come in and say, hold on a minute, there's something going on. These are the ones who are trying to sound the alarm, and now they are the perverts. They are the ones who are the foreigners. They are the ones who are trying to change things and you have to be concerned about being seduced. Watch out for those Christians out there. They might try to teach you that sexual perversion is not okay, and this is a danger. They might try to tell you that working hard and not theft is a good thing. They might try to tell you that the family is important and should not be broken down. They might try to tell you that families, father and mother, and the children unit is important and should stay together. Instead of this radical, humanistic individualism, the TikTokisms of our day, they might get the idea that Christianity is what the world needs: the individual, the family, the schools, and the nation. We give our children, and have been for a very long time, Christians, first and foremost, are on the chopping block for this. And there's been quite a few terms that have been used to beat people down, like toxic masculinity, religious extremism, bigotry, bias, hate mongers. All these terms are used to get you to stop doing your job. If you're going to win a war, one of the first kinds of propaganda that people try to utilize is to demoralize the enemy. That's right, to demoralize them, to see themselves as the bad guys and not the good guys, not the righteous, not the fighters out there. And when they can demoralize people, then where's the war? Where's the fight? And that's what Christians have missed. That's what parents have missed. They've given their children over to be seduced by the foreigner and the stranger to their own destruction. If you had told me 20 years ago that it would be almost considered a hate crime, which means you should be put in jail because you oppose said subject, that children chopping off their genitals and permanently mutilating their bodies, either chemically or physically, that we are the bad guys for opposing such things? I'm just so happy that they've gotten to such extremes, that even our liberal friends are now, our enemies are now our friends. And the point is that America has finally seen how far humanism can go and how destructive it can be, and it is lurching back to the vestiges of Christianity, which brought civilization and stability to our nation and the world. Because without it, men run wild. They destroy each other, and civilization will collapse. And communism and socialism is just the tip of the iceberg that are economical and civil subjects. But it comes down to the family. Is it strong? Is it not? What holds it together? Is there even a need for the family? So the parents, their main problem, they've given up their duty as their children's primary educator. And yes, they have given it over to strangers who have been mislabeled as educational professionals. For some reason, we've allowed our nation, the educational field, even the churches, to let parents be demoralized that they aren't equipped to teach their children, that it's not their job. In fact, if you try to educate your children religiously, morally, or academically, your children will fall behind. They're not as educated, and they don't test as well as other people in the government schools. And for generations, they allowed this to take place until now. The educational facilities have fully taken off the mask. They don't even educate anymore. They don't even try to educate anymore. All they do is turn out indoctrinated, religious, and moral perverts. That's it. Look in the schools today. That's what you see. When you have students literally beating their teachers in the face, and the teachers just sit there as if they don't even have the right to self-defense. Don't even have a right to self-defense anymore. The parents are being beaten, shot, and killed. School shootings. Why do you think all this stuff happens? Because the children are being taught that they are allowed to be barbarians. There is nothing holding them back except themselves. And what they find when they look into the mirror is that they don't have the shining, clean heart that's there. They find that they're a fallen creature. And you know what? It's fun to do evil. It is fun to hurt others. It's fun to cause misery. And all those people who had the jobs to restrict these children, to help them, to guide them, have completely failed their duty, starting with us, Christian parents, Christian teachers. Where are we? There aren't anybody out there even trying to run Christian schools. And if they are, they're only trying to do it for the profit or maybe the clout. They're not trying to do it to be charitable, to help people, to educate children. Nope. That doesn't even happen. They want to have a prestigious classical school, but not because they want to teach children and help families, but because they want prestige and money. Parents also allow their children in so many ways to associate with strangers. And this can be on media, entertainment, and especially social media, the internet, basically. My wife and I, we have a rule, and our rule is very simple. Until our children are ready to take adult responsibilities for adult consequences, they are not allowed to be on certain platforms like social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. They don't have access to Google or the internet itself. No access to any of these things. And the reason why is because we understand they are fallen creatures. And no matter how much you try to educate them, they are going to fall. And they're not going to fall just because they don't understand. You can tell them where the wolves are at. It doesn't matter. They're going to go over there and they're going to associate with the wolves because part of them wants to be a wolf. They want to be seduced. And that's the problem. You think your little young girl doesn't want to be seduced? You think your young boy doesn't want to be seduced? This is why young boys are being seduced by their female teachers at school. Why? The young men want to be seduced. Of course they do. And yes, it even comes to the sexual pervert. The farther a person goes down the rabbit hole into rebellion, the farther that they will go into desiring sexual perversion. And that is exactly what comes from people who are attracted to the same sex. They've gone so far down the road into rebellion that they even rebel against their basic nature that God gave them. And they want it. And you're a fool if you think that you can trust your child. You can't trust your child. It's ridiculous to think you can trust your child and say, well, I taught them. They know right from wrong. It doesn't matter about right from wrong. Search your own heart. You know right from wrong. Does that mean you don't do wrong because you know you're not supposed to do it? And neither do they. You are supposed to be the guardian of these children. And this is why we are so important. And if we don't, we are the ones who are at fault, partly, for their actions. We did not restrict them, and we will give account. Parents lack the religious and moral strength to stand up to others in order to protect their children. We already covered on the national level where they're beating you down, and you're not an educator and all the other stuff. But there's also people in your church. There's also family relations and all the rest. The question is, like Joshua asked, as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. I don't care what anyone else is doing. This is what's right, and this is where we stand. The question is, are you equipped properly, religiously and morally, to take a stand when no one else does? Or are you just going to be a compromiser, and whenever your children fail, think that you have no blame? And a big part of this, a major aspect, is that parents lack a selfless and sacrificial character that they absolutely need to raise children correctly and under God. They're just not able to self-sacrifice. Being a parent is self-sacrificial. The children aren't going to like what you tell them to do. They're not going to like the restrictions. People are going to disagree with you. They're going to look down on you. They're going to think that you're some kind of a pervert yourself because you have all these restrictions and no one else does. And most of these because you're convicting them. They're not restricting their children, and whenever you are, it makes them feel bad and they don't like it. Why? Because they're not going to change. They're not going to stand up to anybody. So we are supposed to teach about strangers and foreigners and to be afraid of them. But it's not on a national level or ethnic level. It's on a moral level. We must teach our children to see the evil that's out there and understand not only that it's trying to get them, but they also want to be caught. They have to learn a healthy distrust of themselves and understand even inside themselves is a stranger and a foreigner who wants to disobey God. This is vital. And to wrap up with our current state of education, a few things. I saw a meme that says public schools can be a training ground for the faith. Well, Public schools can be a training ground for your child's Christian faith, the same that the whorehouse can be a training ground for your husband or your wife's fidelity. That's right. You're sending them into a place that is deliberately designed to entice and destroy their character and conduct. And you're saying, well, they're going to be just fine. No, you are a fool. These schools today are deliberately designed to destroy your child's character and conduct. You are giving your child to the wolf and to the sexual pervert, and they don't even hide it. It is in their education. Don't stand up at a school board meeting and try to yell at them. Go home and yell at yourself in the mirror. That's the person who's the real pervert, not the school board. Next, we have people who are on TikTok. There's a person who calls themselves a doctor, who then, of course, is got a massive following, and they're now trying to talk about how pedophilia is a sexual orientation, and you should have sympathy for pedophiles. So people who are adults, or what we call adults, who have a sexual desire to have sex with young children, well, this isn't a terrible thing. It's just another sexual orientation. After all, they're not trying to go rape children. Wait for it? What does that sound like? Raping children is bad, but seducing them to want sex is not bad. Well, we're back again to the old story of why we had Little Red Riding Hood and public service announcements about being sexually groomed by people so that they don't have to rape you. You give in. And somehow giving in doesn't make the pedophile an evil person. Them wanting to have sex with children and convince them to do it is not evil. Yes, it is. Call perversion perversion. Have the character and conduct able to stand up, point your finger and say, pervert, and then walk away. And lastly, I saw another little meme which was very interesting. It says, atheists really think they're an exception to this rule. Very naive. And in the meme, 3 different levels. There are children walking past. There's a student midway. One says brainwashing Christian. One says brainwashing Jewish. And one says brainwashing Muslim. And of course, the social media post is that atheists do the same. So brainwashing, atheism. So this is all true. We are all going to be indoctrinating. Brainwashing means getting rid of how a person thinks that we don't want them to think like, and giving them a new mode of operations, a new way to think. And yes, absolutely, we want children to think like Christians. We want them to see the world through the eyes of a Christian. We want to brainwash children so that they get rid of all the thoughts that are evil and only have what is good and clean in their minds so they can draw on that. They can live a godly life. They can produce good works. They can have a stable family, take care of their children, be self-independent people, not dependent upon the government, not be sexual perverts, not be somebody that God's going to destroy in the future, but who is going to thrive in this life. And not just thrive, not just personal thriving, but they are a blessing to everyone around them. Absolutely. Stand up, Christian. We do want to brainwash children, including our own. We want to wash out all the filth, and we want to only put in which is good. See, everybody has the same goal. The only question is, what flavor of brainwashing are you going to do? What is its mode of operations? What does it look like? And why is it doing it? And to the goals that it's going. Christians need to stop being scared of concepts like you're trying to indoctrinate the children. Yes, indoctrinate. Put in knowledge. Yes, we're trying to teach children. Of course we are, and so are you. The only difference is yours is perversion. Mine is righteousness. Well, thank you again, everybody. This is Jeremy Walker for Preschool Pioneers. I hope I have given you something to think about. You need to instill a great fear of foreigners and strangers, but the biggest foreigner and stranger is not on the outside, it's on the inside of yourself and inside your children. If we can do that properly, our children can overcome sin, be a blessing to themselves and others. Thank you again for joining me, and God bless.